Hi everyone, because I recently did a video ripping apart the horrible trademark writing style of the late fraud, Dr. Beatrice Sparks. I thought I would, continue the momentum with doing a video based on another blog post which I wrote ripping apart one of her terrible books, the one which, unfortunately the title could not come to me while I was writing the video, but obviously I looked it up afterwards. This is called Treacherous Love, and the blog post was called Treacherous Love. Treacherous Writing, published on the 30th of August, 2013. And I see I got one dislike on that video ripping apart Dr. Sparks's writing style. Like, I don't care. Like, some people, unfortunately, they still, think she was the real editor of those journals. They don't understand or don't want to admit she was the actual writer and how much, danger she did. She wasn't just a bad writer, she was actually influencing people and just I just hate this woman so absolutely much. And it was just so much more. Oh, just it's more than just a bad book or not clicking with it or whatever, because people actually believed her. And just she was so horrible to the real boy who wrote about 25 of the entries in Jay's journal. But I will definitely be getting to that in a future video. She was just awful. And I also do, if you're interested, you can check out a previous video I did about the book Unmasked Alice by Rick Emerson. She was an even worse fraud than I already knew. So just obviously let's just get down with the main video about the book Treacherous Love. Beatrice Sparks's book about a teen girl who gets into an inappropriate relationship with her teacher is her horrible usual writing style. But I must admit, it did somewhat pick up and get better towards the end. And the back matter did have some good resources for teens who might be in creepy relationships like Jennie's. Everything else sucked just as badly as usual. At least in some of her other books, Sparks's authorship isn't so obvious right from the very start. This book was only marginally better than the horrific Annie's Baby, and that's only because it finally started getting relatively interesting and dramatic towards the end, in spite of a too-perfect conclusion. Until the last 20 pages or so, it was pretty difficult to slog through. And I can't believe I actually read the whole thing. As I said in the most recent Anti-Sparks video, I pretty much only read her garbage to take one for the team and write really scathing reviews, ripping her a new one and warning other people away from it and saying, if you're interested in writing edgy or contemporary YA books, this is how not to do. It's each and every single word of her books is like the textbook example of how you do not want to write YA. It has the exact same writing style as all of her other books. A protagonist who thinks, writes, talks, acts absolutely nothing like a modern American teen with a maturity level of a 5-year-old. Had this woman ever even been around any teenagers during the 1990s, the decade most of her books are set during? Even in her own, Molly Mormon Peter priesthood world of Utah, I'm sure they weren't all these goofy, unrealistic goodies she's depicting them as. Characters who are cliches and stereotypes from some over-the-top morality play or after-school special. Ridiculous, childish language. Obnoxious moral preachiness. Apologizing for cursing, thinking negative or unappreciative thoughts, or criticizing one's parents in one's own journal. I mean, seriously, a journal, a diary of all places, that's where you have the one chance to be, totally honest, say things you would never say to real people, like, oh, I hate my mother so much, or I'll never have a good relationship with my, uncle or aunt, or I hate my aunt, or just whoever you're ranting about, or just things in general, and you wouldn't want other people to see, not necessarily because you're ashamed of thinking that way, but because obviously they're just some things you want to keep private and, vent about, and you just oh, I can't believe I just said I hated my mother. I'm a terrible person. Well, yeah, you're supposed to say whatever you want in your journal without, fear of people judging you negatively for it. That's the whole point of a journal, which Dr. Sparks just did not understand. And, of course, Sparks's specialty, frequently writing in all caps, often for several lines in a row, excessive italics, and excessive exclamation points. It's so difficult to read something like that. Not only is it annoying and childish, but it also really distracts from the story. No one ever told her, apparently, the writing in all caps is the equivalent of screaming. Jennie's parents have a weird relationship. One moment they're fighting a lot, the next they're trying to reconcile and work things out, and then her dad finally leaves. Dr. Sparks absolutely loved the theme of broken homes and divorce. Her mom turns to pills to deal with the pain, and Jennie clings to her two best friends, Bridget and Marcy. Marcy started out as a snob she and Bridget hated, till the oh-so-unrealistic scene when Marcy asks to eat lunch with them and immediately admits she only acts snobby and like she doesn't want or need friends because she's afraid no one would want her as a friend otherwise. Like, seriously, that's such a classic example of as you know, Bob dialogue and things like normal people would never say out loud, maybe probably even wouldn't like think to themselves. It's just like she was just scrawling through like psychology textbooks and after school specials to like sprinkle in all this nonsense. Like, who talks like that? It's just such unrealistic, goofy dialogue. Jennie is upset that Bridget gets a boyfriend, Brad, and starts hanging out with him instead of her. Brad eventually dumps Bridget, and the three girls, in a typically unbelievable and ridiculous storyline, start doing weed, wearing only underwear and shower caps for fear they might smell of drugs, until they're caught by Marcy's father, the general. Sparks really managed to pack a lot of her pet crusades into this book: drugs, religion, teen relationships, broken homes, alcoholism, the works. She even snuck in a ridiculous anti-feminist comment when Jennie comments on a teacher who wants to go by Ms. instead of Miss, and how all the kids wonder if she's since when do modern American teens consider it suspicious or wrong for a woman to go by Ms.? This isn't the 50s. And again, this book is set during the 90s when, like third wave girl power feminism, light a third wave feminism, which isn't my school of feminism. Obviously, that's a topic for another post, was like so popular. So like, why would any normal teen in the 90s think, oh, gross, oh, that's so suspicious and unwomanly, oh no, a woman going by Ms. instead of Miss when she's not married, oh, a woman can only be Miss or Mrs. Like, that's just so unrealistic, and yet another example of how out of touch Dr. Sparks was with, like, anything about modern life outside of her little, like, Molly Mormon, Peter priesthood, like, enclave in Utah somewhere. Jennie feels close to her new sub in math, Mr. Johnstone, really quickly, and sees nothing creepy or inappropriate by how he singles her out for increasing amounts of attention. She almost immediately is declaring he's perfect and that they have something special together, another Sparks trope. It's never said exactly how old he is, but I would assume he's at least 10 years older than Jennie. Obviously, she's about, she's turning 15 during the book, and obviously you have to be in school for a long time and then get an like internship and stuff to be a teacher, so he would probably definitely have to be at least like 25 or so. Jennie lets him get weirder and weirder, even to the point where he's taking pedophilic pictures of her, looking like a little girl, and asking her to marry him on her 15th birthday. She only comes back to her senses when she discovers, by accident, what's really been going on by listening to some like phone messages from a friend of his, like talking about how he's like, grooming her and stuff and planning to like take advantage of her and all the creepy, weird like plans he has. Seriously, I really don't think any teen girl would be that dumb, not even one from a dysfunctional family. Of course, everything starts to get back to normal when Jennie finally confides in her dear sweet mommy, whom she's so glad is her precious mom. Yet another stock line, and they both start praying and going to church. And I think maybe I'm confusing this with like it happened to Nancy, or maybe they both have the same thing. But like when Jennie makes her big confession, she like, oh, mommykins, I have something important to tell you, and like she takes her by the hand, and she's so teary, and like, oh, she makes a confession, and mommykins is all in tears too, and oh, Jennykins, I love you so much. Of course I would never throw you out, and I accept you. I'm a loving mommykins. Like, oh, I hate Dr. Sparks' like fetish on worshiping mothers, and like, oh, a mother could only be perfect. Oh, she could never have a bad relationship with her daughter, and everything will be magically all right when the confused teen confides in mommykins in tears. Like, I hate that so much about her books. Sparks really let a clue of her authorship slip when she had Jennie say she feels like she's been kicked out of the celestial circle, a term she's heard but doesn't know the meaning of. What are the odds she would have actually heard that term anywhere unless she's supposed to be Mormon? I only recognize all this Mormon language in Sparks's books because I've studied world religions, and like, seriously, like, she should have been honest and made her characters Mormon. I mean, her writing still would have sucked and she would have still been like a vile fraud and a dangerous person, but at least it would have been, kind of honest. Like, the only character off the top of my head I know she made a Mormon was obviously the real life Alden Barrett, the boy who wrote about 25 of the entries in Jay's journal because he was, a Mormon in real life, and all these others, even the supposedly Catholic Nancy, their diaries are filled with all this extremely like obvious, blatant like Mormon language and like references and stuff. Like, why would a typical person who's not Mormon or seriously, studying that religion for whatever reason know about this language or use it? It's just stupid. I mean, I haven't read all of her books yet, but I would not be surprised if I found, like, for example, some like Joe Smith worship in some of her other books. Like Mormon worship of Joe Smith is totally creepy, but that's obviously a topic for another post. Jennie is by far one of Sparks's most annoying, childish, ridiculous, and loathsome creations. I really wanted to slap her for being so stupid, overly emotional, and juvenile. Sparks had no clue how modern teens really write, talk, act, and think. She also didn't realize you can impart important lessons like don't do drugs, be wary of excessive, increasingly intimate attention from a teacher, don't have unprotected sex, etc., without lying to and preaching at young people to try to scare them straight. The only things she was really good at were creating victims and preaching. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, I do have several more videos planned based off of blog posts I did ripping apart Dr. Sparks's books, and as also mentioned, I have not read all of her books yet to date, so I, obviously have to take one for the team and like choke those ones down so I can write even more negative reviews and do negative videos about them. So let me know in the comments if you have ever read any of Dr. Sparks's books, if you knew at the time they were fake, or if you came to discover later they were fake, and if you like felt like tricked or something, particularly with her most famous example, like Go Ask Alice, or if you know about any of the other later minor frauds she wrote. So just like, I just want to know what your opinion on this like old fraud was. I hate this woman so absolutely much, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.